so we can run through. So I'd like to, well, first of all, I'd like to welcome Paul to the, as our interim sewer commissioner until whenever the election is held, I guess. I don't even know when it is. Looking at our next, well, first of all, calling the meeting to order, I'll say present are Bill McGill, Rod Hoffman, Wayne Stuck, Paul Kears. And our next meeting, just to run through that very quickly. How does March the 2nd look? Same time.
Okay.
All right.
Fine.
And Lisa, did you hear from Dan at all?
No, I've not.
All right.
And thank you for your patience, everybody, while we got this up and running. Yeah.
All right.
I don't see Dan on here yet either. I'll keep my eye out.
Okay. So as far as, I guess the next first thing would be the easement release.
So an update for that, I spoke with the printer. Most of them are going out this week. And that's all he has right now for me. He said with COVID stuff, it's a little difficult getting things done in real time.
So he thinks this week be mailed out to everybody?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okie doke. Okay, 602 Jerusalem Road.
So for that, I have a few people on the line for that. We have Barbara Wren. I think Barbara Wren is a daughter. Bob Shepherd is I think interested in purchasing the property, a developer. Let's see, we have David Lucier, Dean Podell, Gail Peterson Bell is a realtor.
Yeah, maybe it'd be good if either in a chat or something, they can all tell us who they are, what their relationship is to this, and their address if they're butters. They can just do it in a chat, right?
Yes.
Becomes part of the record. Okay. Oh, saw a couple of them. There's one up already. All right. Okay, so I don't know who called the meeting on the participant side, but perhaps they want to be identified and see what the issue is or issues are.
Should I be able to unmute them?
Well, yeah, I suppose so. Yeah.
Okay, so let's see.
We'll use Gail Bell to start.
Yeah, she's the one who called the meeting. I mean, is she who wanted to come before
She
us? Or?
represents the
Yes,
buyers.
Gail and Bob did.
Okay, that's fine.
So I might have to, okay, here we go, allowed to talk. Gail.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi, yes.
Hi there. So I have Michael Kiley, who is the owner of the property on here as well, and Bob Shepherd is the developer who is interested in purchasing the property. And it was he and I that asked for the meeting. The question that we have basically is, what is the status of the potential sewer capacity for that project?
Well, I guess I could be the first one and ask Wayne to get in here. We don't know. We have some capacity remaining. We have Chief Justice Cushing Highway, the Stop and Shop ahead of you, as far as they actually have been talking to us for about a year and a half. We also have a decision by the town, part of the master planning effort to determine where we would be sewering, what new districts perhaps could be done, as well as an effort to do the Gulf River, to go down South Main Street into North Situate if there is a regional sewer system put in. So I guess the the most accurate answer, at least from my standpoint, is that we don't know. Wayne, do you have anything more to
Yeah,
add?
well, I guess the second part of it is, do they have anything today that is approved to be able to get sewer service? And I would think if there's one or two lots that exist today with their own frontage and stuff like that, then they could apply and likely get a permit. If it's an answer that they're looking for something that may be 2 or 3 or 4 years from now, that's a different story. There's no way to predict that.
Right.
So where do you stand, Gail?
Hi, Lisa, can you unmute Bob?
Yes, he's unmuted.
Yes, okay.
Hello.
Hi.
My name is Bob Shepherd. I am a developer from Hingham. And have been talking with Gail and the owners about this property. Apparently it was approved 20 plus years ago for a 23 lot subdivision. Obviously those permits have expired. And one of the first major hurdles for any developer to look at that property is to know that there's sewer capacity in the system to spend the kind of money that needs to be spent there. So that was my first question, is what is the sewer capacity? I heard the answer to that. It's unsure. The next question is, what from the developer does the board need to secure those kind of sewer hookups for the future? Because it will be probably a year plus process to get a new subdivision approved there.
Well, I mean, and again, I'll ask Wayne to chime in on this. I mean, we were only, one bit of the approval process. Have you gone before the town? Have you put any plans to the planning board or?
No,
zoning?
we only have the previous plans that were approved, and those plans are expired, so you can't take them. They have to be redone. But it costs hundreds of thousands of dollars to do that. And the last time this development was approved, the reason why it didn't go forward was because it didn't have any sewer capacity. So, I don't want to spend, all kinds of money to get something reapproved that's never going to get built if in fact there is no capacity, or the board feels like there will be no capacity. We're looking at 23 lots here, so it's a significant size development.
The thing that is also available to you, of course, is to see whether or not there's an area on site for a common septic system, or if you wanted to put in a mini treatment plant, which you might be required if your flow is over 10,000 gallons anyway, and sewer wasn't available, as was done on the Toll Brothers property off of Beechwood Street. So you have other things to do besides necessarily connecting onto the public sewer.
Okay.
And that's really my comment, not something that the board necessarily is, but it's just a fact of developing.
Okay.
So you stated that it was denied many years back because of sewer capacity. Did they estimate sewer usage on those 23 lots?
I don't have that information. All I have is the expired plan. The plan was technically approved, but could never move forward because that area of town, I guess, did not have sewer capacity at that time. So
What do you think the size of the homes are going to be? Are they going to be, 18 to 2,200 square feet, or are they going to be 25?
no, there'll probably be 3,500 square feet on the average, 4-bedroom, 2-car garage kind of homes.
How many bedrooms again?
Probably 4 on the average, Might be a few with 5.
Because we can certainly calculate the, you know, based on Title V, what the usage could be.
But it's one of the still, certainly not tomorrow, and certainly probably not next year,
No.
for you to go through it. And so many things have changed in 20 or 30 years that unfortunately aren't grandfathered, you know, like distance from wetlands and the retention areas you have to put in now for your drainage and runoff and stuff. So, you know, it's a big deal, but it's a big deal, meaning, and of course there will be certain amount of neighbor opposition, and that always has to enter into it, and it often results in higher costs.
Right. Okay. Well, those are the questions I had. I appreciate your time.
What is the total acreage of the area for the 23 homes?
It's about 46 acres.
Do you have any questions, any more questions for us? Because it's, I know.
No, I
that-
know.
Okay.
I'm all set with that.
Okay, good. So you, good.
There are a couple of comments from Katie Dugan. She is saying that the 1999 plans never went through Conservation Commission approval process, so the DEP files are not complete. An additional comment is the stormwater bylaws and wetlands bylaws were not in place, so local and state review has to be done, along with a whole set of new issues with planning board.
Okay. Thank you for that, Lisa.
Yeah, the town planner is certainly would assist in telling you what you need to do to go forward if you want to try to go forward.
Okay. All right. I appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thanks, Bob.
Yep.
Okay. Chief Justice Cushing Development. Rod, do you want to just tell us your recent exchange with Attorney DeLisi?
Sure. Actually, I haven't had anything since the last meeting. Just prior to the last meeting, I had a long conversation with Jeff DeLisi, who is the developer's attorney, and reported on that last time. And I had not had any further discussion until I received a letter over the weekend that I forwarded around yesterday, which really just restated where they were a year ago. And I had informed DeLisi that the commission would likely accept proposal, accepting all the previous terms and conditions, but with a connection fee of $1.6 million, which was basically a reduction of $252,000, I think it was. And so I put that on the table, and had no response to that, other than the letter that basically restated their earlier position.
Yeah, so I guess the issue that we have, and it's not ours really to adjudicate, but it is whether or not they are allowed to put a private line down a public way, number one. And number two, in my opinion, who actually sets the rates for use of a property? And it certainly isn't an applicant. It could be somebody else, but it's not an applicant, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, they are able to construct a sewer main in the state highway, but there are certain criteria they will have to meet and satisfy. Obviously, it's a lot easier if the town has a sewer extension and, owns and operates that sewer extension in the state right away. But it is feasible for a private extension to be done. There were some aspects in that letter too regarding the Abatement Brook, and it's not an environmental emergency or a necessity. I would contend that it probably is an environmental need, because at this point in time, the system's in failure, and it has been demonstrated that they can do an on-site system.
Right. We have two systems that are abutting it that are in failure right now. So I guess a question to Dan and Rod, in your experience, have you ever had a town give back the responsibility of setting the sewer connection rates and having it go to the applicant itself?
Well, there's always something that can be negotiated with these types of extensions, and certainly a portion of the fee can be assigned to the construction of the facility if it is eventually turned over to the town as a usable facility for their use. In this case, I'm not really sure how much use you're going to get out of a sewer extension in this area at this point in time, excluding Cook Estates, because we really don't know where that is at this point in time. But this is going to be a private sewer extension. It's going to be used by a single user. It's kind of doubtful if anyone else would connect to this line. So from that perspective, it may remain a private sewer extension.
Right.
You assuming control over it, all you're really doing at that point is assuming liability. It's not really a great asset for you. It's not going to generate additional revenue. And, obviously in the past, when you have a private sewer extension for development, usually it's part of the development costs. But, if there are some benefits to it and you end up assuming ownership and take possession of the force main, there is one avenue that says you could provide some economic release by granting a portion of the fee towards the construction of that main.
Well, to Rod's point, when this came up to us being, Chris Senior called me and asked if there was something we could do. And Wayne and I went back and forth, and Paul, before you were on the board about 2 weeks ago, about doing a concession, another one. We agreed to take $252,000 off on behalf of the affordable housing piece, so that it dropped it down to 1.6. But
I do have a question. Just if the line is on 3A, it's this state road. How is it private? Isn't it public and requires public use for anyone else who wants to hook up to it?
If you use it to connect someone else up to it at that point in time, yes, I would recommend that it be public. But up to the point in time where it's a private line, it can be maintained as a private line within the state right of way. The Mass State has to approve that. And typically they want to see certain things in place like emergency response, if there is a break, full line of contact, and certainly that can be provided at a private level. They would prefer if it is done at a municipal level. There's no question about that. But there's no criteria that says it has to be a public main. If you have more than one user on it, yes. I mean, it would behoove you to take it under as a public main. You can still take it on as a public main, even though he's a single connection. It's really a choice that the board can make. You're not committed to any single position.
in this case, though, it would have to go before the town. If it was a public extension, it would have to go before the town as an increase in the sewer district, right?
Well, I believe the rationale when you first considered this was that the sewer commission has the right to extend the system under certain conditions. And one of those was basically, a failed system out of the district, but also, that abuts the district. And the other aspect was for the public housing need, or the affordable housing component. And I think that's the way you were approaching it, was based upon the affordable housing component.
Well, we were never, just again for the record, back when this first started and when the owner of the property came before the board, it was very clearly put to the board that the owner was going to pay for the extension down 3A to Tapella Road, period. The only, and in fact, part of the reason that the board conceded to open up discussions again was solely and only for the affordable housing component. And then we did that concession, and we've given them another $252,000. I don't see the town, and I don't see the sewer ratepayers who are not that, who are part of the town, separate but part of the town, are going to want to pay, X million dollars to go down 3A for one person.
Right, and the question is, what type of cost recovery would you get if you did do something like that? How much is he going to pay in fees? How long is it going to take for you to recap or recoup that investment?
Yeah, I know.
It's going to be a long time.
Yep.
I just had a couple of questions. I'm kind of obviously new to the sewer commission, and I just want to understand the private versus public piece. So if the sewer ran to Tupelo and nobody hooks up to it, it's private, and the property owner bears 100% of the cost for a private line. Does then any abutter have the right to hook up to it? And then if they do, then it becomes a public line. It then becomes a public line to the town.
No, what we had in our original, I think it was in one of the first, and Wayne, you can be an archivist on this and tell, one of the first back and forths we had with the owner was, he said he was going to pay for it, but they wanted to know if there would be relief if a private individual wanted to connect to it. And I believe we said, yeah, we would give them back half of the connection fee. I don't remember exactly, but there was some sort of, there was certainly discussion on providing relief if a private individual wanted to hook up to the, a private individual wanted to hook up to that line.
Okay, and then where the town manager had submitted the grant works and they're planning on submitting it again, that would extend the line towards Sawyer, so then it would become public at that point.
Well, again, I mean, we haven't really been part of that discussion for whatever reason.
Yeah.
We've asked, but we really haven't been party to it. We have seen some documentation about it and seen some, I would call it a sketch, not a plan. But again, I don't know what, I don't know whether that is I think that this whole idea of going down Sawyer Street started before the Cook Estate had their issues.
Okay.
So my recollection is, so I don't know why the change of course has occurred, because again, we haven't been kept in the loop on it.
Right. So where it stands right now is the property owner agreed to pay for a private line to Tupelo, and then if there's additional hookups by abutters to the line, then it becomes a public way, and there would be a percentage of consideration back to the property owner.
I don't know if it would go back to a public way, but certainly,
okay.
I don't know the legalities of that, but certainly he would get a piece of that connection fee, yes.
Yeah, actually, it can be done either way. It could remain a private line, and with our permission, he could add someone else to his private line. But generally speaking, in terms of the town of Cohasset, when there's more than one person on a line, public entity on a line, the remaining portion at least has become a public line. And that's been applied in some of the other sewer districts. But,
we had a situation in the past, and it had to do with water mains, and that a gentleman on Forest Avenue had to bring the water from North Main Street up Forest Avenue because there was no town water when they were doing this little subdivision on the right-hand side. And he paid it, and he tried to get the water department to pay for the pipe or anything like that, and they refused. So it was a private line that went up there, a 12-inch main. A few years later, the town was going to connect onto that 12-inch main to take it further up Forest Avenue. And he successfully got the town to pay all of the costs with inflation and interest and everything for that main that he put in the town property. My feeling is that if someone's going to put it in public property, the state's layout, it should be the same thing. We should not have someone hold us up in the future from a situation that it might even be the town that wants to connect onto that pipe because of a piece of property they might have to put a fire station up, and all of a sudden it could be denied by an applicant if that was the case. Secondly, the town should have a say in how it is engineered. Number two, the town should inspect the installation, because no matter what, we're going to be the person that's going to have to fix it if it breaks. And in the past, when we've let a private person pay to extend a sewer line, we would allow a future person to pay the person back, but not more than what the local amounts were that we would have charged. So in Jerusalem Road, that happened where sewer would cross two vacant lots, or vacant houses with lots, in order for them to be able to hook onto it. And they did it according to what we wanted for our distribution system. And then they were paid back, but it ended up costing them more than it would have cost had they waited. So those were situations in the past. So I think it has to be worked out as to the sizing, the location, what side of the road it's going to go on, and the potential future use of it, so that it is sized correctly. That's my feeling.
It definitely has to be. You know, the other thing too is one of the things in the letter, what they're talking about prevailing wages and this privately built versus publicly built. If the intent of a construction is to end up turning it over to a municipality, prevailing wages that typically still apply. So basically, you would still have to construct it with prevailing wages and then turn it over to the town.
Mm-hmm.
So there isn't a great benefit if knowing from day one he's going to build it and turn it over to the town. The only advantage you have is if it is a private line, he could, you know, it remains a private line for whatever time. At that point in time, prevailing wages would not apply.
Right, so we had that issue with the senior center where
Yeah.
we didn't have to do the prevailing wages, so it was all private when we did the senior center. So and then the town acquired it at the end. There was a challenge to that prevailing wage piece, but it didn't hold up. So
it was private money that was paying for it, not town money. And then it was after it was completely finished that we sold it to the town. That would have made it anything after that point would likely have to be, if it met over the certain dollar amounts, would have to be prevailing wage.
Right. I think the only change was, I don't know if it was intended from day one to turn it over to the town. You know, if something is intended to be turned over to the town, typically that's when that provision would kick in.
yeah, there are provisions to keep people from thwarting the prevailing wages. Yeah, that's for sure. I'm kind of in agreement with Wayne on this one. You know, I'm not a fan for somebody owning a sewer line that goes all the way to Tupelo. It has possible connections through the Sawyer, and having a private entity, and that entity could change hands over the years. So I would like to see if it does become a public-private piece where the town owns the main line, and we're getting 30 years of affordable housing credit for that over that period of time. So, you know, there could be some sort of amortization schedule over that 30 years of affordable housing piece, where the town takes some responsibility for costs, and then majority of the cost goes to the property owner. But you know, I think properties changed hands with owners over the years, and you know, I don't know who will still be around to remember what we said, other than these recorded Zoom meetings. But
Yeah. And-
I'd like to see some sort of, you know, if the town owns the line, I'd like to see some private money pay for a majority of that, since the majority of its use would be for, you know, a private enterprise, so.
Yeah,
I think the other part of this is, what would be the greatest value to the town for a sewer main to serve that property? In terms of, is it one that there's very little additional use so that you could say, all right, not too many people are going to fill it, so it's not going to use much capacity? Or is it to look at the future of a Fair Oaks Lane or the music circus or the schools or anything else like that, and in fact do something going down Sawyer Street, or maybe going down to the school and cutting over and stuff? But there's things that have to be looked at, which are, and of course that would, if the Cook Estates, you know, goes forward, and I certainly know that the sewer department, the Board of Health would like to put them on public sewer, because they almost know that there's going to be failures with the other three systems, because it's starting to sort of show up. But we can't just say, all right, go down to the Deer Hill School Deer Hill School, and just tie in there, because maybe that pump system isn't going to take 25,000 gallons or 30,000 gallons, and that pump station is going to have to be fixed. And then go to the next school, we have another pump station, and say, well, maybe that's not going to be big enough. And
Right.
then maybe it's, you know, maybe we're doing too fast a input into the top of Pleasant Street. But those questions should be sort of looked at and analyzed, and it would be far easier and better for us to have something that would then hook on to other situations that already existed, rather than things that haven't existed, you know, that don't exist today. I have one other quick comment, and that was in his letter of February 22nd, the attorney for the applicant, if he's not at the future applicant, as I am sure that you are aware, in connection with the recent and imminent Mass Works grant applications, the property owner has collaborated with the town and has already signed a contract and committed to $75,000 of the engineering, consulting, supervision, and Mass DOT fees related to the proper sizing, location, installation, etc. I don't think that if they are reapplying for the same grant at the amount that they are reapplying for, then I can't see how they're necessarily going to get it again. And my opinion is that that plan was just totally over estimated, and doing things like a concrete sidewalk with granite curbing along this strip of property for the owner. And it was getting to be that this is really going to be just for his project. And I'm not sure that is something that's in the public's interest, to get 5 affordable units, but counted as 25, because you can do that, and have it for 30 years, and then be taking up all these other businesses and tying that in on the same piece of property.
I just wanted to make one more thing, comment too, is, you know, from my perspective, if there is a sewer in public roadways, it is best served if it is a public sewer. Just from the perspective of emergency maintenance, long-term maintenance, and being able to connect, as you said, you know, from a maintenance and emergency response perspective, obviously it's better to be a public sewer versus a private sewer. It's just, you know, how do you justify the economics of it?
Yeah, well, you know, when that was actually brought up, going back to our first series of conversations, and again, both on Sawyer Street and 3A, the future applicant came right out and said, no, I'm going to pay for it. Now, I don't have a problem with it being the town's sewer line if it is on, if the town owns sewer line, if it is on 3A. I certainly have a problem with the town paying for it with only one person using it.
Well, I thought that there's no real, if you use the estimate that the application for the works grant was, this would be over $1 million just in paving 3A to put the utilities in, you know, and other things like that, that the total amount was 3.7 million with a $1 million contingency. And we're going to have to contribute a certain amount of it. We're spending a lot of public money, whether it's state money and local money, for one person to, and really, I asked the chairman of the selectmen, I said, are you extending the sewer to the affordable housing building only, or to the other buildings on the property? And my, what I thought I heard was no, you know, no, we did it for that building, not, you know, we didn't maybe even discuss doing it to all the buildings. So isn't that sort of something that is an emergency?
But I think once you run a line, abutters have the right to hook up to it. So, you know, whether it's the same ownership in abutters, there's those 3 buildings I think would still have the right to hook up to it. And anyone else on 3A to Tupelo would have the right to hook up to it. I don't think those rights can be denied, but I certainly agree that, you know, to put in a system to benefit one individual, I understand the argument there. You know, from the affordable housing perspective, though, you know, this is something that the town so desperately needs, and we're in a situation where the property has a history of issues surrounding the ability to manage sewer or manage waste, I guess. And it's gotten to the point where it's been recommended that sewer be the solution to the problem. And now I think that we've run into some scope creep where things are starting to get added to it. All of a sudden, this mass grant work pops up with sidewalks and greenscape, you know, pear trees planted. You know, I don't know what else is in that grant, but it seems to me that if we limit the scope to getting the affordable housing units and coming to an agreement of the ownership of the line and the ownership of separate stations that have to pump through that line, and then discuss the financial contributions that have to be applied to whoever is going to be part of that. So if the town is paying 10%, the private property owners are paying the other 90%, then we have to come to some sort of decision on that, I would think.
Maybe I'm going to just put something out there just for general discussion. You know, you want to treat him the same as you would treat anyone else who's connecting up. And typically,
precisely.
There's a fee that's assigned to homeowners when they hook up based upon flow, and that's really what you're doing. You've assigned that fee to this property. You've already offered up a credit of $252,000 basically for the affordable component, because that component provides benefit to the town. In terms of the impacts of this sewer to the system, there may be some collection system components that will need upgrading, some improvements, but generally the flow is still within the general range of our treatment capabilities. So there probably isn't a significant amount, probably a couple $100,000 worth of improvements in the system, maybe to the pump station, maybe to the force main and the down gradient system that ultimately would be realized by the connection. But I think you do have a potential where you could grant up to a certain limit of credit from that fee towards the construction of the main, providing it is turned over to the town for public use, and you still get a portion of the funds to do your collection system improvements. And the question is, how much credit would you give him for that construction? And some of his numbers are all over the place. In terms of building the force main, itself, in other words, what's in the roadway, you know, we're talking, you know, under $1 million, I would say, probably. But it's close, close to $1 million. In terms of the pumping station that he's going to have to put onto that system, I would assume that's private, unless there's some other mechanism for connecting up Cook or some other property that actually also pumps into that system. But I think you do have a little wiggle room. You're still assigning a fee to him. You're having him construct a facility that you take over, and you're still getting a portion of the funds to make your system improvements. I think that would be, you know, defendable to the town and to the other users, in that you have signed a certain fee, you provided a credit for the housing, you provide a credit towards the construction of an infrastructure component that's going to be turned over to you. And at that point in time, you would own that pipeline, and anyone along the way eventually could connect up to that. So you leave your.
Yeah, the thing I see in this is that it's who, you know, I'm against doing any kind of payment on this, but as far as who pays for it, the sewer ratepayers or the town? That's a question that somebody's going to have to answer.
So
Yeah.
I have one question too, is if this area is deemed a separate sewer district, would we have the ability to charge a different rate than we charge the residential rates? For instance, if there's if we run into capacity issue and we have to pump an extra, you know, 5 or 10% to Hull, would we be able to have a higher rate in this particular sewer district than in other areas of town?
Yeah, we had put forward an agreement for them to review, and part of that agreement, I believe, covered that they would be paying Hull rates. Correct, Brett?
I believe that's correct. It's been a while since I reviewed it, but yes.
Right. So, I mean, and really that is justifiable from perspective of, you know, the sewer commission up to this point has planned expansions, South Main Street, you know, infilling to satisfy its capacity. This component is an added component that wasn't originally planned for. And, you know, it could cause us to divert more flow towards Hull under that IMA.
So
for that
we
reason,
can't apply a commercial rate then to that properties, those 3 buildings.
I mean, for that reason, I think you can basically have them sign the development agreement that basically says we can charge them the whole rate.
Okay.
I just want to make a couple of comments, just based on some of the discussion. So on the grant application, you know, we applied for the town applied for the 3A grant application, but as of right now, there's no plans for a reapplication for a grant to do this work. We did have an after action meeting with the state on why we didn't get the grant. And a lot of it revolved around, you know, the design and permitting not being complete and it hadn't been fleshed out enough. But as of today, there's no plans. I know, I forget who had said, but that we were reapplying, but right now there's no plans to reapply for that. Public sewer, I agree with all the comments that it should be a public sewer in the right of way, for all the reasons stated on future use. Or it should be constructed as a public sewer, and whether it's private and then turned over once the second customer connects, that seems to make sense. Prevailing wages may be a moot point because we're in the DOT, the road layout, and there are requirements for contractors in the state highway. So that prevailing wages may need to be paid, whether it's constructed private or public. And just on the extension of sewer, so there's only 2 ways the sewer can be extended, either by the authority of this commission or by town meeting. And I think you're talking about, you know, the selectmen planning to extend one way or the other, but there's only you guys can extend the sewer through permissions, you know, in that the legal authority that Dan had mentioned earlier, you know, for certain town benefits and usage, or it can be through town meeting. So I just wanted to make those comments.
And I think that's good. And I think that we are not against it, this connection at all. It's just a matter of, we would have to go to town meeting to get money to build it if we were to pay for it, so that we really have to have the user at least front the cost of having it done, and that they're the ones that this is for. I think reimbursement over time, I don't mind that at all. I just don't know what the mechanics of it are. But I don't necessarily want a developer sort of selling connections on his own to recover money that he spent. It should be almost set up as some sort of a future credit or something that, you know, he wanted to have some time to, I don't know if it was every 4 months or something like that, to pay the fee. But the key thing, he wanted the fee to pay for the work. Well, he can't, you know, who's going to pay for it in the interim is the question.
And all these new conditions that have been sent to us all follow when he opened the door with to this proposal of, I'll pay for everything. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I would just add, because Paul is new, Lisa or Rod, you know, you guys pretty comprehensively detailed the connection agreement in that legal agreement you drafted back in June. So if Paul doesn't have a copy of it, if you could forward that to him, it kind of goes through all the detail of what the agreement should be, and, you know, cost share and all that stuff, and construction detail.
I'd like to get a copy of that. Yeah, I think, you know, to Wayne's point, you know, you can credit the flow rate if we're charging the hull rate right out of the gate. You know, maybe over the course of a 3 or 5 year term, where you credit a percentage of the flow rate back to the property owner, if that's, you know, to get paid back the money or whatever it is. There's
To Wayne's point too, I mean, what I had mentioned earlier is, if you're assigning 1.6 million as far as a connection fee, basically, you know, just an idea. I mean, you could take 600,000 as an initial payment and defer the $1 million that he owes you until such time as he turns over the constructed force main to town ownership. And at that point in time, you'd have a credit, you give him a credit for part of his fee. So there's really no money that you would have to really transfer. It's basically granting him a credit on what he owes you.
Well,
He puts up all the money to build it and construct it. Basically, he would also have to pay for inspection to make sure it goes in right. And, you know, whether you design it or he designs it, that's, you know, something you could iron out. But, you know, from the perspective of needing money or paying him back, it's really, all you're really doing from my perspective is you're playing with his money. You know?
well, we in the agreement, I believe we gave him initial terms as to what we wanted. So there would be, I think it was a third up front,
Yep.
a third at some sort of to be negotiated progress point, and then a third upon final inspection and connection.
Mm-hmm.
So however long that takes is, you know, I didn't see a reason to take all of his money up front. That was not right. That was not the right thing to do.
Based on our original numbers, 600,000 would be about a third.
Yeah, I think what Dan is saying is, you know, it's pretty good. I think that another key part of this is that we only want the town to pay, if we're paying for it, the portion that is from his property line to the pump station, unless it was extended to Sawyer Street, and we pay for it to go to Sawyer Street. The thing that we don't want to pay for are the pumps and collection system that he has to do to connect the 3 buildings up, because that's going to mean going across his parking lot and doing all this other stuff. And I would prefer not to have to pay for that on his property, because none of the private people have had to, you know, we haven't paid in any situation like with Little Harbor District. They have paid for the construction on their own property to get to the main. Now, if he was to go down and continue the main down to Sawyer Street, he'd probably be way ahead because he could connect separately from almost each of the buildings going out to the street instead of going through the whole parking lot and keeping it all in one area. Then a pump station at Sawyer Street and 3A would probably make sense for the feng shui building and stuff.
Yeah, you know, I've always worried about that strip that had problems before, right next to that brook, you know, the coffee shop and, you know, Dunkin' Donuts, I mean, and some of those other strip malls. There's really not much land there. Even though the Board of Health said that they had issues and they've resolved them, I still worry about that area. So, I mean, extending it down to Sawyer Street does serve a kind of a multi-purpose. It does allow a connection point for those strips, but it also provides a connection point theoretically for Cook Estates too. So that's a good idea to extend it down to at least Sawyer Street as part of it. Doesn't necessarily have to be used initially. It could be gated off and capped, but you know, having an extension going down that far would be a benefit. The only issue or the only problem I see is with the extension in that area is what is the capacity, and you know, how does that open the door to you know, further sprawl or additional connections, you know, beyond what is environmentally needed.
Or the other, I mean, I keep looking at Fair Oaks Lane because it's a 60-year-old development and septic systems, and having it at Sawyer Street would allow them to come out at the lowest part of the whole thing. They could almost do a whole gravity collection system if it was necessary for the future. So those 40 houses or so should be sized or something in the pipe.
Yeah, I've heard you mention that before, but you know, over the past 20 years of planning and research at the Board of Health, I've never really seen an issue over there with the septics, you know, for extensive repairs or problems.
I don't know.
Just want to make one call. I have to jump off here in a minute, but the as far as construction costs going to Sawyer Street or construction costs going just to the plaza, it's surprisingly, it's almost double the distance just going along the frontage of Stop and Shop Plaza to get all the way to Sawyer Street to Tupelo Road. It doesn't seem like that when you're driving along the road, but it's the case. So you're almost, you know, it may be, you know, 60% of the cost just to get to the property, and they could have a pump station on their property. So going all the way to Sawyer, it is a lot more costly than just stopping at the property.
So just one quick thing, because I don't want to just end this, but I've got a hard stop at 12:15, excuse me, 11:45. Sawyer Street isn't Seward all the way up Sawyer Street. So how are we going to get down? Isn't it connected at Sawyer and Ripley?
Sawyer Street is
Seward up to the.
Sawyer Street is only Seward on the, as Paul mentioned, on the Elder Affairs.
Right. On the other side of the railroad track.
And the schools.
Yep.
If you're going, you know, if you're going anywhere from up Sawyer Street to connect, like Wayne said, you'd connect into probably the pump stations of the schools, which goes cross country over to the Pleasant Street side. And you need to look at those and make sure that they would handle.
Right. I'm just reiterating, but to Wayne's point, wouldn't we have to resize those pump stations if we're going to have a larger capacity?
You'd have to look at them. I don't know offhand whether they're big enough.
There's no pump stations below Pleasant Street. It's all gravity down there. The only thing is that would be a lot of flow. And we've had odor control issues down there with the aeration of the wastewater as it goes down Pleasant because of the steep grade. We've had that in the past. There is nothing to connect to up Sawyer Street as you go further up. The connection at Ripley is only a pressure connection, and that's down the street a ways.
Yeah.
Actually, another option is going all the way to North Main. And basically connecting up at that point with the force main.
Okay. All right.
Into the system.
Can we move on to Diab Lane?
Everybody good with that?
Yeah, no more discussion on that, fine. I think just for Rod's information, he might point out now that we know from Brian that they're not going to be likely getting a Mass Works grant because they're not putting an application in that you know, should be answered in his letter. And that we'll just wait for some wait for an application to come in.
Hmm.
And maybe for an engineer that they are spending $75,000 on to communicate with Dan about what the specs, the basic specs are that they're anticipating, and the route that they're anticipating, and a few other things. So
I will communicate with Attorney DeLisi that was again discussed at this meeting, that we got that information on the Mass Works grant. And you know, his client has requested another application, and we're waiting.
Just for the last word here on this property is that, like I said, we got into a lot of scope creep again. If we're focusing on the original ask, which was a line from Stop and Shop to Tupelo, I think we all summarized our agreement that it should be a public line for the future of the town. So if we focus on Stop and Shop to Tupelo, and understanding that it would be turned over to the town as a public line, then at that point we can determine the sharing of the costs of what that looks like.
Okay, why don't we move on?
So Matt Shannon is on the line. I'm going to allow him to talk. Wants to talk about Diablo.
Matt, go ahead. Hello, Matt. No, he's not on anymore.
Oh.
Well, what are we gonna do? All right.
is he on the agenda for today or no?
No,
He
but
is.
well,
Diablo is.
Diablo is, but he was on, I saw him on the
Yeah.
participants list and then he just dropped off. Well, let's see if he gets back on. So
Okay.
why don't we go to the abatement on 62 Blackrock?
So we have Lori Greenup I'm going to allow her to talk.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Hi.
Yes.
Yes.
Hi,
Yes.
this is Laurie Livingston Greenup. How are you guys?
Great, thank you.
So, hey, Paul.
How are you?
Hey, so we received a bill for sewer, and we currently don't have sewer inside the home. We've connected all the workings at 62 Blackrock. We have used exterior outdoor water for our plantings that we did before the winter came. And we did use water for that, but it was not sewer water. We have two different connections, and we did pay that water bill. So we're just curious as to why we're getting a sewer bill when we don't even have a toilet in our house yet.
And just to refresh the commissioner's memories, this came up 2 weeks ago at our last meeting. And I had asked Brenda to start billing for sewer, and it was prematurely. In the meantime, I did have Scott Papa did a field visit to the property, and he had said that even though the grinder pump tank was filled with water, there was no indication of sewage. He went inside the building, and there are 3 bathrooms. One, the toilet was
It's in place, it's not
it's
working.
in place, but there were 2 bathrooms that had toilets in place, but they weren't hooked up.
Correct,
There was 1 bathroom that didn't have a toilet.
right.
So there was no indication showing that they were using sewer.
So
Where
how
did the water come from in the tank?
I don't know. I mean, we have not, as I said, the only water we've used is in the spring, or in the fall, was to water our outdoor plantings that we had done. And we're not sure why. I mean, we're just as confused as it sounds like you guys are, and we're not really sure why we're getting a sewer bill when there's no possible way we could have used any sewer.
So is the house under construction?
Yes. And I invite you guys to come. I mean, we'll walk you through it and we'll show you, that it's not hooked up yet. And I look forward to it being hooked up very, very soon, but.
No, I mean, if Scott has already done it, I don't see a necessity to go look at it, so.
Yeah, yeah.
So we just need to issue a credit.
Yeah, I mean, and like I said, I mean, it's not the $223. I mean, we're trust me, we will be thrilled to pay it once we're in the house. We just don't want to pay for something that we're not using yet.
Right.
I make a motion to abate the $223.
I'll second. All in favor? Aye.
Thank you, guys.
Yep.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Okay. I don't see Matt Shannon.
I don't see him back on either. Let me see.
And again, just sort of for the record, Lisa, did he ever respond to our letter to him?
He did not.
Okay, so, and we gave him what, that was 3 weeks ago? We gave him 2 weeks, I think, something like that?
2 weeks ago, yes.
Let's just get Paul up to speed just so he knows what the situation is.
That might take us to 2 or 3 weeks.
It will.
Yeah, is this the property that's getting credit for another line?
Yeah,
And
three
right?
of them,
Three,
three
yeah.
of them, and very quickly, he's had a very advantageous sewer connection fee based on old connections that were moved over to those properties that he had. And he has done nothing with them, and they were supposed to do something with them over a year ago. Now he's reapplied. He was supposed to have a signature, I think, before February the 1st, week, or before the end of January. He got one signed to us on January the 27th, and we finally got it somewhere the first week of February. So we missed a date that we reluctantly gave him. We gave him another date of 2 weeks, and that was probably 3 weeks ago, and it's been crickets ever since.
And he owes the town money, and so therefore we don't even have the right to be able to grant him the permit at this time. But it has expired and expired and expired, and I think that the only thing this means is that he's selling the lots, but that the buyer is just going to have to pay the connection if he doesn't pay the connection fee, which is only the same connection fee that he'd have to pay anyway.
Right.
Versus the lesser amount that he's moved around all over town looking for land that won't perk and ledge that he can buy cheap. And
I mean, I'm sort of,
make a motion just that enough is enough, and that they're no longer, I guess we could give them credit towards the 37.5 with whatever the amount is, but I think that even complicates it.
No, it does. And I think, he's had ample opportunity to exercise these things, and he just doesn't do it. So, and to your point, Wayne, he owes the town money, so we can't do it anyway. So I'll second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Okay. So the mission statement.
Yeah, so I had sent that with my comments, and I've been working on the town report. So the mission statement is something that came from Don Pyatt, and so I think it's something that has to be updated yearly. And it's showing, it's just talking about what we've done the past year.
Yeah.
So for 2020.
So it's just for the annual report, right?
There's a secondary portion of that is the annual report. But yeah, they could be one and the same.
We have a mission statement and then goals separate from the mission statement, right?
Yeah. And then I'm working on the annual report that I'll send to you my comments on that to see if you guys have any additions.
So on our website, on our town section, the only annual report up there is 2013. Is the rest of our annual reports just stuffed into the town's annual?
I don't even know. I don't know.
Well, I'm
Yes,
looking
it
at
goes
one.
into the town booklet, and,
So if you took down the 2013 from our website and just state that our annual reports are within the town annual report.
yes, and then, yes, well, we can, whatever way you want, we can update that once we have an update. The latest one that I had found in the actual annual reports that are online for the town was 2015.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I just assume take it down and then refer people to our annual report being inside of the town's annual report.
Okay.
And it doesn't look like we missed the boat for a number of years.
Hmm.
Now, speaking of votes, did we have an election last spring, or was it held off in one fashion or another?
An election for,
Office election for people on committees and boards and stuff.
Yeah,
Not election.
yeah,
yeah, I
absolutely.
think we did, yeah.
Yeah.
I think we did.
Yep, Wayne, yours expires in 2023. I confirmed that with
Okay. So,
the clerk's office.
okay, I was just.
When am I gone? Am I gone this year?
2021, 2022.
Oh, damn.
And my seat expires May 31 or June 30 of this year.
Oh, it would be June 30th, right?
June 30, okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
would it be? I'm
Yeah,
kind of
that's right. That's right. It's June 30. Elections in May, expires in June.
Easy to renew.
And Paul, will you be seem to be on permanently?
Well, I did pull papers. So I have to get 50 signatures and they're not allowing anyone to stand at the dump. So we'll have to figure out how to do that. And
We can't scare them away yet either.
Drop some off at drop one of the copies off at my house and I'll get.
okay. Yeah, and then I'll just have to understand what else I need to do besides signatures, so I'll probably need some advice from someone.
Yeah, I'll take a sheet if you want. So, let's see. So should we get to, one of the things we have to do is, as part of discussions that we've had with Dawn and what have you about a potential price increase for our rates, is to formally approve a 10% rate hike. And the board has to vote on it, and then that'll get put on the record so that it can be presented to the Board of Selectmen as far as as what we want to do. And I think one of the things that I spoke and had a conversation with, I think Wayne was there and Don, is that basically, at least in the last 3 years, but I think maybe in the last 3 to 4 years, we have not had an increase. We have hired a new operator that is more expensive than the past operator. Our electrical bills are going through the roof, and we've had a couple of sewer pipe failures on Jerusalem Road and one other, I can't remember, that are going to require us to increase our rates to balance the budget. So I'd like to make a motion that we vote to increase our rates in the next fiscal year by 10%. All in favor? Or can I have a second, rather?
Can I have one question? Is the 10% go both on the minimum fee, sort of the customer fee plus the usage?
I don't know. I think it's basically on the usage. Because our main revenue stream is the sewer usage, right?
Yeah, the flow rates, right?
Flow rate, yeah, usage.
That's the rate. The other one would be a fixed fee.
Yeah.
And you can increase the fixed fee too. But that
No,
would be-
yeah, I know, yeah, we can. I think that the numbers that we were crunching with Dawn, basically, if we increase the rates, the actual sewer usage rates, then we would have a balanced budget as it's presented today.
Okay, so the flow rate then.
Yes, yep.
Okay.
That gives us time then to address if we wanted to have a cost of living increase every year on a regular basis of 1.5% or 2% or something like that moving forward.
Yeah, well, we can talk about that. So,
I second your motion.
pardon me?
I second your motion.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Paul Kearsey, aye.
Okay. So,
Matt, Shannon is back on.
oh Christ, I gotta get, all right, I'm gonna I can be 3 minutes late, but that's,
What's he want to say?
Okay, Matt, you're on.
I'm not sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I just got the email that you wanted me to appear to this, so I'm not sure what we're supposed to talk about. I did, the application was submitted, the taxes were paid, so I think I've done everything that was asked of me,
When?
last week.
That's too late.
We've asked you like, I don't know how many times about this and then,
Well, the applications were submitted, before Tuesday was the deadline, I believe, right?
Yes, I did. For a clarification, I got them on January 27th. The applications.
I think, Bill, we can probably take it under advisement and review it at the next meeting on March 2nd.
you know, we've spent more time on this than we've spent on anything. And I don't know. I'm not throwing rocks at you, Matt, but we don't have hard empirical proof that this stuff has happened yet. So,
Well, the town does. I mean, you asked for several things. I did it. And I mean, what else do you want me to do?
what date was it? Did you do it during the period of time that we gave you as an extension after the previous extension?
You asked for the plans. The plans were submitted before February 1st. Then there was an issue that there was some taxes due. So I wrote the town a check for $2,000. That was done before Tuesday of, I believe, a week ago. Tuesday was when that was supposed to be done by. So I've done everything that I was asked to do. I mean, I have all the receipts. If you want me to scan them and send them over, I figured this stuff, since it was done at the town, it would be, there. But if you want me to put together a packet and send it over, I can do that.
Well, we voted earlier not to renew your right to move forward with those lots. So we'd have to take it under agreement next meeting to see whether or not we want to rescind that. Okay.
Well, I think, in all fairness, I was not aware that this was going to be on topic for today, and neither was my attorney. So I think we both need to be present for that.
Well,
Well,
coming in next week.
But Matt,
yeah.
we have been talking to you for how many years now on this? And you got a letter from us.
Well, hang on a second. You asked me to do something. I did it. So what more do you want?
I'm not sure whether you did it within the time period that we asked
I
you to do.
absolutely did 100%.
Okay, but do I have something in front of me right now that says that?
Well,
No.
if we were in the same room, I'd slide a piece of paper across the table.
Okay, but we have to keep going. So let's bring it up later.
And
Okay, so will this
just for
be put on
record,
for the
I
next?
did-
We don't know. We'll get back to you on it, Matt. All right. I think what you should do for the fourth or fifth time is scan all those things, send them to Lisa so that she can send them.
No, it's not. Excuse me. It's not the fourth or fifth time. It's the first time I've been asked to do it, and I will do it.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Where's my gun?
Oh, come on, this is recorded.
Yeah, I don't think that's an appropriate comment. I did everything that was
No.
asked of me, and-
But okay, fine.
Yeah.
Are we done with the business of the day?
Yeah, yes, I believe we are.
Yes.
Okay, we have
All
a
right.
date of
March 23rd.
2nd.
Actually, the budget will need to be approved also. So he needs to know before March 9th.
Do it by March 2nd. then.
Yeah, we can do the budget on March 2nd.
Will that include the 10% we just voted on?
Yeah, we'll have to have we'll have to add that in there. Yes. Actually, Lisa, if you could ask Don to add that in as part of the sewer rate.
Okay.
That'll erase the deficit.
Correct. Yeah.
Post-deficit.
All righty.
All right. I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right. See ya.